Subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon to never miss an update from Endeavour Careers. Hello and welcome to Endeavour's GK Capsule for the month of October 2022. In this edition, we will discuss the winners of Nobel Prize 2022 under key categories, the much expected re-election of Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, change of government in Brazil, Italy, Rishi Sunak taking over from Liz Truss as UK's next PM, change of leadership at Twitter with Musk taking control, RBI's yet another rate hike, and inauguration of 5G services in India, among other things. The first category is awards and recognition. US trio of Ben S. Bernanke, Douglas W. Diamond, and Philip H. Dybvig received the Nobel Prize for Economics 2022 for research on banking and financial crisis. The work for which the trio are being recognized has been crucial to subsequent research that has enhanced our understanding of banks, bank regulation, banking crisis, and how financial crisis should be managed, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said in its announcement. French author Annie Arnoux won this year's Nobel Prize in Literature. The panel commended her for blending fiction and autobiography in books that fearlessly mine her experiences as a working-class woman to explore life in France since the 1940s. The Nobel Peace Prize went to jailed Belarus human rights activist L.S. Bialyatsky, the Russian Human Rights Organization Memorial, and the Ukrainian Organization Center for Civil Liberties. Three scientists, Frenchman Alain Aspect, American John F. Clauser, and Austrian Anton Zillinger, jointly won the prize in physics for their works on quantum entanglement that can be used for specialized computing and to encrypt information. Our next section is Persons in News. Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, was re-elected as the General Secretary of the ruling Communist Party of China. He has set the record for being elected for his third 5-year term, something only party founder Mao Zedong has managed till date. She was chosen as the party's General Secretary in a closed-door vote after a week-long Congress. Kicking off the 20th Congress of China's ruling Communist Party, Mr. Xi vowed China would never commit to abandoning the use of force when it comes to the issue of Taiwan. He added that China sees self-ruled democratic Taiwan as part of its territory to be reclaimed one day by military intervention if necessary. The leftist leader Lula da Silva made a comeback as the new president of Brazil after defeating incumbent far-right president Jair Bolsonaro. Lula da Silva served as the president of Brazil for 2 terms between 2002 and 2010. During his previous 10 years as the president, Brazil witnessed a massive economic growth and large-scale implementation of social welfare programs that raised millions of people out of poverty. The victory of Lula in this recent election indicates the leftist shift in Latin American politics. The head of the Nationalist Brothers of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, swept to victory last month, becoming the first female Prime Minister of Italy. As part of an electoral coalition that included Forza Italia, led by former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi and Matteo Salvini's Anti-Immigrant League. The government is Italy's most right-wing administration since World War II. She has been the president of the European Conservatives and Reformist Party since 2020. She supports NATO but favored close ties with Russia before the 2022 Ukrainian crisis. She condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine and has pledged to provide military aid to Ukraine. Justice Dhananjay Yashwant Chandrachud is set to become the 50th Chief Justice of India in November 2022. The current CJI, UU Lalit, nominated him as his successor during a meeting involving other judges of the Supreme Court held on October 11, 2022. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud's father, Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, was the 16th Chief Justice of India. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud overruled a landmark judgment of his father that upheld the colonial era adultery law. Other landmark judgments involving D.Y. Chandrachud concern euthanasia, entry of women into Sabrimala, decriminalization of homosexuality, abortion rights, the Hadia case, medical college cases, and the PIL of mandatorily playing the national anthem in cinema halls. Lieutenant General Anil Chauhan was appointed as the Chief of Defence Staff. The post of Chief of Defence Staff was vacant for over 9 months since the death of the first CDS, General Bipin Rawat, lost his life in a helicopter crash in December 2021. General Anil Chauhan has over 40 years of experience as he has held several key command, staff and instrumental appointments. He was involved in counter-insurgency operations in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast India. He served as a part of the 11th Gorkha Rifles of the Indian Army. In the rank of Major General, he commanded the Infantry Division in Baramulla sector in Jammu and Kashmir. Mulayam Singh Yadav, Samajwadi Party founder and 3-time Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, passed away last month. He was 82. He was a senior Indian politician and the founder of the Samajwadi Party. The former wrestler rose in UP politics in a period of intense social and political ferment after the 1970s. Emerging as a socialist leader, Mulayam soon established himself as an OBC stalwart, capturing a swath of political space vacated by the Congress. He took oath as UP's 15th Chief Minister in 1989, which marked the year when the Congress was voted out, failing to return to power in the state ever since. Moving on to our next section, Places in News. Home to the iconic Sun Temple, Modhera was declared India's first solar-powered village by Prime Minister Narendra Modi last month. Armed with an array of solar panels spread across 30 acres in the nearby Sujanpura village, Modhera is now the recipient of its 6 megawatt installed capacity. Not surprisingly, the village, with a population of 8,500 people, uses only 1 megawatt or roughly 5,000 to 5,500 units. The rest of the capacity is added to the transmission grid. The city of Hyderabad, Telangana, has been honored as the grand winner of the IIFT, International Association of Horticultural Producers, World Green City Awards 2022, the most prestigious award of the inaugural IIFT World Green City Awards 2022 edition, for its initiative titled Green Garland to the State of Telangana. Hyderabad also won the award under the Living Green for Economic Recovery and Inclusive Growth category. Moving on to the major highlights in the category of national news, Defence India has signed a significant export order for missiles, rockets and ammunition to Armenia as the Asian nation is engaged in a prolonged border conflict with neighbour Azerbaijan. The government-to-government route was used to sign a number of contracts for the supply of arms and ammunition to Armenia earlier this month. While the value of the contracts has not been revealed, it is estimated that weapons worth Rs 2,000 crores will be supplied to the country over the coming months. India has been making significant efforts to increase weapon exports, with policy reforms and active support of the government to secure overseas orders. In other news, the centre has imposed a 5-year ban on the Popular Front of India and its associated entities under the Anti-Terror Law, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967, which is UAPA. The Union Home Ministry would announce a tribunal to assess whether the restrictions on PFI and other entities were legitimate or if there was not enough evidence for the ban. In its notification, the Ministry of Home Affairs said some of the PFI's founding members were the leaders of the Students' Islamic Movement of India, and the PFI has links with Jamaat-ul-Mujahideen Bangladesh, both of which are proscribed organizations. In a surprising turn of events, the Supreme Court delivered a split verdict in the prolonged Karnataka hijab ban case, with one of the judges upholding the 15th March High Court order validating the ban and the other setting aside the HC ruling and calling wearing of the apparel a matter of choice. With the two-judge bench divided in its view, the matter was directed to be placed before the Chief Justice of India, UU Lalit, for appropriate directions. Amid worsening pollution levels in Delhi, the centre's air quality panel has directed authorities in the National Capital Region to implement curbs such as a ban on construction and demolition activities under the Graded Response Action Plan Stage 3. The Commission for Air Quality Management further said states might impose restrictions on the plying of BS3 petrol and BS4 diesel four-wheelers in the NCR, considering the worsening air quality. This direction is non-binding on authorities. Stage 3 of GRAP means a ban on all construction activities except those of national importance. The government last month hiked the windfall tax on domestically produced crude oil by more than a third, while doubling the rate on export of diesel and reintroducing the levy on overseas shipment of jet fuel in line with rise in international oil prices. The tax on crude oil produced by firms such as state-owned Oil and Natural Gas Corporation was increased to Rs 11,000 per ton, beginning 16th October from Rs 8,000, a government notification showed. Next, we have major highlights in the category of international news. Russia's war in Ukraine has completed 9 months, and yet there is no end in sight. Despite intense pushback from the West against Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin has clearly refused to relent. While world leaders have been flagging the possibility of the use of nuclear weapons, shortage of food and fuel have been among prime global concerns. Through the last month, Russia launched its most extensive attacks on Ukraine in months, striking military and energy facilities as well as several civilian areas during rush hour. The attacks spanned 14 regions and included assaults on the capital. This renewed Russian offensive comes after Ukrainian forces destroyed part of the only bridge connecting the occupied Crimean Peninsula to Russia. IMF's steering committee chair stated the conflict as the single biggest factor fueling inflation and slowing the global economy. Moving on with his plans to autonomously operate the annexed Ukrainian regions, Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered his government to take over operations at Europe's largest nuclear power station in southern Ukraine's Russia-annexed region of Zaporizhia. The power station, which is close to the front lines, has been occupied by the Russian forces since March. Zaporizhia nuclear power station is located on the banks of the Dnieper River, only 200 kilometers from the Donbas region, a point of intense conflict between the two armies. It is one of the country's 4 operational nuclear power plants, having been in operation since 1984 and accounts for roughly 40% of total electricity generated by all Ukrainian NPPs and 1/5 of annual electricity production in Ukraine. In another important piece of news, Liz Truss resigned as British Prime Minister last month, brought down just 6 weeks into the job by an economic program that roiled financial markets, pushed up living costs for voters, and enraged much of her own party. The Conservative Party, which holds a big majority in Parliament, has elected ex-Finance Minister Rishi Sunak to replace her. Rishi became Britain's 3rd Prime Minister this year and the first person of colour to lead the former imperial power, vowing to mend the mistakes of Liz Truss's calamitous 49-day tenure. Sunak said a disastrous budget that felled Truss was motivated by a well-intentioned desire to kickstart growth, but its tax-cutting measures were mistakes nonetheless. Sunak has now staged a stunning turnaround in political fortunes and vowed to do the same for Britain as it confronts decades-high inflation, surging borrowing costs, and imminent recession. Sudden and unexplained gas leaks detected in the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines from Russia to Germany have prompted investigations by European countries into the cause amid fear of possible sabotage. An energy standoff over Russia's war in Ukraine halted flows through Nord Stream 1 and prevented the onset of flows through the parallel Nord Stream 2. Russia and NATO members have directly or indirectly traded blame over the ruptures to the pipelines, which are part owned by the Russian state and part by European energy companies. North Korea launched a ballistic missile toward its eastern waters and flew warplanes near the border with South Korea, further raising animosities triggered by the North's recent barrage of weapon tests. It is the latest in a spate of missile launches by North Korea in recent weeks. North Korea has stated that its missile tests in last month were simulated nuclear attacks on key South Korean and US targets. It said the weapon tests were meant as a warning to Seoul and Washington for staging dangerous joint naval exercises involving a US aircraft carrier. In other news, the Biden administration has announced sweeping new limits on the sale of semiconductor technology to China. The package of restrictions, which was released by the Commerce Department, is designed in large part to slow the progress of Chinese military programs which use supercomputing to model nuclear blasts, guide hypersonic weapons, and establish advanced networks for surveilling dissidents and minorities, among other activities. Flash floods and landslides set off by torrential rains left at least 50 people dead, including in a hard-hit southern Philippine province, where as many as 60 villagers are feared missing and buried in a huge mudslide laden with rocks, trees, and debris. The unusually heavy rains flooded several towns in Mindanao and outlying provinces in a mountainous region with marshy plains, which become like a catch basin in a downpour. In another unfortunate incident, at least 151 people were killed and 76 others injured in a deadly stampede during Halloween celebrations in Seoul's Itaewon district. The next category is news from the field of business, economy, and industrial sector. Elon Musk has taken over Twitter, wrapping up his $44 billion acquisition of the network after over 6 months of public and legal wrangling over the deal. Among Musk's first moves of change in leadership, he has fired Chief Executive Officer Parag Agrawal, who went to court to hold the billionaire to the terms of a deal he tried to escape. Other departures include Vijay Agade, the head of legal policy and trust, Chief Financial Officer Ned Segal, who joined Twitter in 2017, and Sean Edgett, who has been general counsel at Twitter since 2012. The Competition Commission on 20th October imposed a penalty of Rs 1,337.76 crores on Google for abusing its dominant position in multiple markets in the Android mobile device ecosystem. Besides, the Fair Trade Regulator has directed the Internet major to cease and desist from unfair business practices. In April 2019, the regulator ordered a detailed probe in the matter following complaints by consumers of Android-based smartphones in the country. The allegations of unfair business practices pertain to 2 agreements: Mobile Application Distribution Agreement and Anti-Fragmentation Agreement, which were entered into by the OEMs of Android OS with Google. In a rare order, the Securities and Exchange Board of India cancelled the certificate of registration of Brickwork Ratings and prevented it from taking on any new business, saying there have been repeated lapses in the functioning of the rating agency. SEBI has been tightening disclosure rules for credit rating agencies since 2016 in a bid to boost transparency and accountability after a number of sudden sharp corporate rating changes. Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi Corp has shut down its financial services business in India 4 years after its launch. Xiaomi recently pulled its MI Credit, which connects smartphone users with lending firms for quick loans, and MI Pay apps from the local Play Store and its own App Store. In India, Xiaomi's strongest market outside of China, the company has been subject to government probes for allegedly dodging tax regulators. In April, India's Federal Financial Crime Agency froze $676 million worth of Xiaomi's assets, alleging the company made illegal remittances to foreign entities by passing them off as royalty payments. The World Bank has cut its 2022-23 real gross domestic product growth forecast for India to 6.5% from an earlier estimate of 7.5%, while warning that spillovers from Russia's invasion of Ukraine and global monetary tightening will weigh on the economic outlook. Private investment growth is likely to be dampened by heightened uncertainty and higher financing costs, the World Bank said in its twice-a-year report. The international financial institution also noted that slowing global demand will impact the country's exports. This is the third time the World Bank has revised its GDP growth forecast for India in financial year 23. In June, it had slashed its FY23 GDP growth forecast for India to 7.5%. Earlier in April, it had trimmed the forecast from 8.7% to 8%. The RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das announced that the country's rate-setting panel has raised the benchmark lending rate by 50 basis points to 5.9%. The fourth consecutive rate hike after a 40 bps increase in May and 50 bps hike each in June and August. RBI has now hiked the benchmark rate by 190 basis points since May 2022. The inflation projection for FY23 has been retained at 6.7%. MPC expects inflation will likely remain above the tolerance ceiling of 6% through the first 3 quarters of 2022-23, with core inflation remaining high. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated 5G services in India last month, marking the beginning of the use of the next generation network in the country. The 5G services will be rolled out in a phased manner. The 13 cities where 5G networks will be launched first include Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chandigarh, Chennai, Delhi, Gandhinagar, Gurugram, Hyderabad, Jamnagar, Kolkata, Lucknow, Mumbai and Pune. The rest of India's cities, towns and villages will get access to the next-gen network over the following months and within 2 to 3 years. 5G network is set to come to the entire country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone for a plant of the Tata Airbus Consortium in Gujarat's Vadodara. This is the first aircraft manufacturing facility in the private sector. The estimated cost of the project is about 22,000 crore rupees. The C-295 planes, which would be manufactured here, would give a boost to the Indian Air Force fleet. Prime Minister Modi announced that the Vadodara plant would not just help in giving a boost to the Air Force, but also develop a new ecosystem for aircraft manufacturing. At least 15,000 skilled jobs are expected to be generated with this project. Moving on to our next category, meetings and summits. On 17 to 20th October 2022, New Delhi hosted a hybrid meeting of the Council of National Coordinators of the SCO member states. The meeting had over 30 items on its agenda. The parties discussed the preparations for the meeting of the SCO Heads of Government Council, issues relating to India's SCO chairmanship in 2022-23, and other projects concerning trade and economic cooperation between SCO member states. The grouping, which came into being in 2001, has 9 countries as its members. India, along with Pakistan, became a member of the grouping in 2017. Moving on to our next category, science and technology. In a big success, Indian Space Research Organisation launched several satellites in its heaviest rocket, LVM-3, which blasted off the Satish Dhawan Space Centre in Andhra Pradesh, Sriharikota. It launched 36 broadband communication satellites into the low Earth orbit for a UK-based OneWeb. OneWeb is a private satellite communications company in which India's Bharti Enterprises is a major investor and shareholder. ISRO's heaviest vehicle, LMV-3, is also dubbed as one of the heaviest for its ability to carry satellites up to 8,000 kgs. The mission assumes significance as this was its maiden commercial mission and also New Space India's first with the said launch vehicle. Moving on to our next category of sports, Argentina captain Lionel Messi last month declared that the 2022 World Cup in Qatar will be the last of his career. Messi, who is due to appear in his fifth World Cup, made his international debut in 2005 and has since won 164 caps for Argentina and is the country's all-time record scorer with 90 goals. In other news, India defeated Sri Lanka by 8 wickets in the finals of the Women's Asia Cup 2022. India has bagged the position for the 7th time. Sri Lanka won the toss and opted to bat first. Sri Lanka made 65 runs in 20 overs, losing 10 wickets. India chased the target in 8.3 overs, making 71 runs with a loss of only 2 wickets. Indian ace Vishwanathan Anand returned to winning ways, upstaging world number 1 Magnus Carlsen in the 5th round of the classical section in the Norway chess tournament to climb to the top spot. After defeating the Norwegian superstar in the Blitz event that preceded the classical section, Anand claimed the victory in a thrilling Armageddon, which is a sudden death game, after the regular match ended in a 40-move draw. Indian Grandmaster Arjun Erigesi too hogged the spotlight, beating Magnus Carlsen in round 7 of the preliminaries of the AIM Chess Rapid Online Chess Tournament. The 19-year-old Erigesi, who had gone down to compatriot Vidit Santosh Gujarati to make a losing start in the event, is currently at the 5th place after 8 rounds. The win over Norwegian superstar Carlsen in the 7th round was the Indians' first over the world champion. Erigesi won 3 straight games, beating Nils Grandelius from Sweden, Daniel Naroditsky from USA, and Carlsen before settling for a draw against Jan Krzysztof Duda from Poland. Novak Djokovic claimed the 90th title of his career and the 4th of 2022 with a dominant straight sets victory over Stefanos Tsitsipas in the ATP final in Astana. The Serb won in Tel Aviv as well, his first singles tournament since wrapping up a 7th Wimbledon crown and 21st Grand Slam title in July. With this, we have come to the end of this month's edition of GK Capsule. We hope you liked the coverage of topics in our monthly edition. Do also watch our other online videos. Happy learning. Thank you.